Welcome back to Bits and Boards. Today we're going to talk about Agricola, all creatures big and small. I have Caverna off to the right. I have Agricola off to the left. The reason I have all of these out here is because they're in the same family. They're all resource management games. They're all farm games. They're all tile laying games. The first thing you'll notice is the scale. Caverna takes up a ton of space. Same with Agricola, takes up a ton of space. This is really all the space you need. If you had a cramped spot, this is all the space you need for Caverna is right here. And it's a two-player game. It's really tight, it's really compact. Now with Agricola, you're putting workers out. This is a worker placement game. They're all worker placement games. You're putting your workers out, you're gathering resources. You're using those resources to sow and reap fields. You're using those resources to get animals, to put them in your pen. Now, the ultimate goal is to get as many victory points as you possibly can. To do that, you have to be able to feed your family. If you can't feed your family, you get a begging card, which is -3 points per food counter you don't have. It's very brutal. Agricola is very strategic. It has a very steep learning curve, in my opinion, because of all these occupation cards, all the minor improvement cards, the major improvement cards, how they all work together to best optimize your farm. If you don't know how to play Agricola, it's going to take you a while to be really efficient at it. Caverna, also a resource management game, also a tile placement game, all UA Rosenberg games, all Z-Man games. But the thing about this one is a lot of people call this the streamlined Agricola. I have to agree. In this game, instead of having cards for occupation, minor improvement, major improvements, you have two parts of your board. You have a cave, you have your farm. You use the farm to build pens, you clear the forests, you use this area to sow and reap your fields. In the cave, you use this area to build dwellings, to build different rooms, each of which gives you a different ability. I very much prefer Caverna over Agricola. So where does all creatures big and small fit? It really fits in the middle of the two. Now, here's the deal. I really think Agricola, all creatures big and small, is much more like Caverna. In Agricola, all creatures big and small, you're placing workers there on that board, you're getting resources, you're using those resources to place these dwellings here onto your farm. You're also creating pens with the fences to hold in your animals. There's no food, there's no having to worry about major or minor improvements, just the building. Let's take a minute to look at it now, and you'll see why I think, in terms of a two-player game, why it's so strategic and why it's so great. So this is the general setup of Agricola, all creatures big and small. Around the outside, I have all the pools of the different resources. Here I have cows, horses, I have tokens for when I run out of these wooden bits. I have the resources used to build buildings. I have the reeds are white, the stone is black, the wood is brown. I have pigs, feeding troughs, sheep. I have the expansions. In the middle, I have the worker placement board. And the actions are as follows. So this first action will get replenished at the beginning of each round. It's worth 1 wood and you get the first player token. This second action will get replenished at the beginning of each round. And you can tell because it has these arrows, and you probably can't see that, and I'll show you that here in more detail here in a bit. But this action will give you 3 wood. This action 1 stone, this action 2 stone. This action gives you a fence and an expansion. There are 8 extra fences in the game. At the beginning of each round, you'll put a fence on this action spot. Now, there's only 8 extra ones, and that delineates how many rounds there are left in the game. So there's 8 rounds, and that completes the game after the 8th round. This spot will give you 1 wood, 1 stone, 1 reed. This will not get replenished from round to round. This spot will give you 2 free fences, and then you can pay unlimited 2 stone per fence to build. This is unlimited wood 1 wood for 1 fence. So if you have 10 wood, you can use those 10 wood to build 10 fence, or you can use 5 of that 10 to build 5 fences. Here will allow you to build a stall for 3 stone, 1 wood, 1 reed. Here you can transform your stall into a stable for 5 wood or 5 stone. Here it allows you to build a feeding trough. Now feeding troughs are pretty vital to this game, to a good victory. A feeding trough will double the capacity of any particular area that's been fenced in. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So this one will allow you to place one for free, and you can also pay 3 wood for 1 stall for as many times as you can have wood. Now these 2 spouts are the same. It allows you to build one of these special buildings here at the top. The worker placement, well, your player board starts with 6, and then you start with a cottage here in the lower left-hand corner, and that cottage is worth 0 victory points. And in the lower right-hand corner, you can see it will house 1 animal of any type. Each player starts with 9 fence pieces. Each player starts the game with 3 workers and will finish the game with 3 workers. Now, the red players, the first player, they'll take their first, and it's just like any other worker placement game. You put it down on the action you want, you take the resources, right? So the red's going to take the wood, the blue player is going to take the stone, the red player is going to take this 1 fence and an expansion, and the expansion just gives you more room on your farm to build. The blue player is going to go here and take 1 of each. And then the red player is going to finish up by taking 1 animal. She's going to take the cow. And you can do that because you can put in 1 animal. You can put 1 there. Now there's the blue player has 3 stone, a wood, and a reed. Not enough to build anything up here. Actually, nope. Can't do that. But let's see here, 3 stone, 1 reed. So what would happen is this blue player is going to use this player token, going to go to the stall action, going to play the 3 stone, right, the 1 reed, and take a stack from one of these stalls. There's 4 stalls right here. So this here will tell you costs 3 stone, 1 reed to build. It's worth 1 victory point, and you can have 3 animals of any type, and they're going to place on the board like this. Okay, then at the end of the round, each player takes their workers and replenish the board. Now this first one didn't get used, so it's going to get replenished with 1 wood. Now there's 2 wood on there. The second action is going to get 3 wood. Going to get wood. The stone, 1 stone here, since these are used by the blue player. So that's going to have 2 stone, this is going to have 2 stone, and then another fence is going to come out, and that delineates how many rounds are left. So after this round, there'll be 6 more rounds left. Now down here, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a reed, and then in parentheses is a sheep. So if there's already reed out here, you're going to put a sheep. So there's already reed, I'm going to put that sheep. There's already a pig in this one, you're going to put a sheep. If there's already a horse, you're going to put a sheep. Now the first player took the cow. There's no cow. Now the pig is in parentheses here, so if there was a cow here, or if there was a cow here, you'd put in a pig. But there's no cow here, so I'm going to grab a cow and put it there. Now it's replenished, you're ready for round 2, and you go back and forth. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to show you a little bit more detailed look of the player board. So after a few rounds, this is what your player board is going to start to look like. You can see that I have some fences in there around my fields. I have a special building. I have a couple pigs and some sheep. I also have a feeding trough. Now, I want to show you this real quick. Earlier I talked about these arrows. Wherever you have an arrow like this, you always, at the beginning of the round, put 3 wood here. So if no one grabs 3 wood here after 3 rounds, there's going to be 9 wood here. That will never happen. But if it does, that's how these work. And there's, not very many of those. I think there's 5 of those in the game on the board. Okay, so I just want to show you that real quick. Now let's talk about the player board a little bit. So the cool thing about the buildings is that all of these buildings are bordered with yellow, right? Let's see if I can get that focused in. Yeah, see how that's bordered with yellow? Each building has a cost in the upper left-hand corner. So this is going to take 3 wood and 1 reed to build. The 0 right here is the victory points. This doesn't have any victory points, but as soon as you get this, as soon as you play the hay rack, you get 1 sheep, 1 cow, and 1 horse. Now, the yellow around here are fences. Okay, so that's really how you can use these to your advantage to be able to use all of the spaces on the board. And you can see that here. So here where I have these pigs, I have a fence here, here, and here, and this special building. Now this is in a closed area because this special building has a fence attached to it. Each one of these squares can hold 2 animals. So if I have a fenced in area like this, that's going to hold 4 in that entire space. Now, if I start adding feeding troughs, it's going to double. So each square can have 1 feeding trough. So in this case, I have these 2 spaces. Normally, I could only hold 4 sheep here because 2 here, 2 here. But with this feeding trough, it doubles. So I can hold 8 in this area. Now, if I were to take the action, that would give me a feeding trough. That would double again. So that would be from 8 to 16. And you continue going back and forth, going throughout the rounds and doing that. Now at the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points win. There's some awesome buildings. For example, you know, this building, it's not worth any victory points, but at the end of each round, you can put a stone on this building, and then at the end of the game, for each stone you have, you're gonna have 2 victory points. And each building gives you some kind of capability. This one's kind of expensive, costs 5 wood, but again, it gives you that ability to fence in an area and give some improvement to your farm. At the end of the game, each animal is worth 1 point. Each expansion that you use completely is worth 4. This wouldn't be worth anything because this top one isn't fenced in. If I fenced in this area, this expansion would be worth 4 points. And I can put as many expansions as I think I can handle on here, each one being 4 if I use all 3 spaces. And at the end, you get bonuses for the number of animals you have. There is a penalty. If you don't have 4 of each type, you're going to get -3. So here on this board, I don't have any cows, I don't have any horses. That's -3 for each. -3 for the cow, -3 for the horse. Now if I had 4 horses or 4 cows, I wouldn't get -3, but I also wouldn't get the bonus either. And on the box, on the bottom half of the box, there's a chart that shows you exactly how this plays out. And you can see that here. So 0 to 3 for each animal is going to give you -3 points. And then 8 to 10 sheep is going to give you 1 extra victory point. 11 to 12 is going to give you 2. 13 is going to give you 3, 14, etc. Now, sheep are ubiquitous in this game. The one that is really tough to get is that horse. That's why you only need 5 horses to get 1 victory point. But if you can get up to 10 there, that's going to give you 4 victory points. So that was a real quick, brief summary. I didn't cover all of the rules or all of the action spaces, but that's a real quick summary of how you play Agricola, all creatures big and small. So there you have it. That's how you play all creatures big and small. There really isn't a whole lot to it. You place workers, you get the resources, you use those resources to put fences around your fields so you can put in your animals. You use those resources to build these buildings, and that's it. But there's so much variety to the game, especially with the 2 expansions. Now, if you're just going to play the game with just the base game, you're going to have quite a bit to play with. There's only 4 special buildings and a ton of stables and stalls that you can use. But I would really recommend getting one or the other. If I had to get one of these, more buildings big and small is the one I would get. Even more buildings big and small is good, but to me there's a lot more interesting buildings in more buildings big and small. Now, I don't say you have to get one of the expansions, but it is going to add to the replayability. I really enjoy this game for what it is. It's a quick setup, two-player game that you can play twice in an hour and 20 minutes. I've played this game so many times with my wife. We can have it set up in 5 minutes, play a quick 30-minute game or two 30-minute games, and then take it down in 5 more minutes. It is such a great game. It's so compact. You can take it on the run. It's one of those games you can take camping with you. It's got a low profile. The strategy involved, you wouldn't think it's that much because it's such a small game. But there's a ton of extra buildings in these two expansions, and depending on what comes out, they're not such game killers as I've seen cards can be in Agricola. They're all pretty well balanced. They all do a lot of things. Some of them have a lot of victory points, but you have to spend a lot of resources and time to get those buildings. The key to Agricola is having a good balance of the high numbers of animals and buildings to really give you some extra capabilities and extra room, because you can place animals on those buildings, which means you don't have to necessarily, put fences around an area before you can start getting animals, which is a great strategy. There's a lot of different ways to win this game, in my opinion, for the size of this game. Of course, Caverna or Agricola is going to step it up in the strategy, but for what this game is, a two-player, quick, strategy-based resource management tile placing game, you can't beat this. This is one of my favorite two-player games. I really love it. Thanks again. This is my review of All Creatures Big and Small. I can't recommend it enough for a quick two-player game. So, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.